Why would NASA abandon 50 years of splashdown tradition for untested waters? For half a century, NASA crews have returned to Earth with picture-perfect landings in the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. But on August 9th, 2025, something changed. 4 astronauts, American, Russian, and Japanese, splashed down in the vast Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Southern California. Headlines called it a triumph, yet behind the celebration lurked a far deeper story. This was not just a change of scenery. It was the first time since 1975 that a NASA crewed mission ended in the Pacific. According to the Los Angeles Times, NASA astronauts splashed down off SoCal coast for first time in 50 years, a move described as historic. But why risk everything on a new, untested drop zone when so much is at stake? Astronaut lives, billions in technology, and America's reputation as a space leader. SpaceX and NASA say the westward turn is about increasing safety. As AI News reports, SpaceX's strategic westward turn aims to increase safety. But safety from what? Ocean currents, weather patterns, debris from deorbiting spacecraft? All of these factors mean a single miscalculation could spell disaster. And with future missions aiming for the Moon and Mars, the decisions made now set the tone for space exploration for decades to come. So what forced NASA to rewrite 50 years of landing playbook? What dangers and unsolved problems are hidden beneath the waves of the Pacific? Let's dive into the history and uncover the real reasons NASA chose tradition for so long and why breaking that habit matters now more than ever. For decades, splashdown meant a gentle return to the warm waters of the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. So why did a NASA crew suddenly plunge into the vast Pacific Ocean, and what's really at stake for the future of space travel? On August 9th, 2025, 4 astronauts, representing NASA, Roscosmos, and JAXA, ended their epic 5-month journey aboard the International Space Station with a historic splashdown off the coast of Southern California. Anne McClain, Nicole Ayers, Takuya Onishi, and Kirill Peskov became the first NASA-sponsored crew in nearly 50 years to land in the Pacific, closing out a 148-day mission packed with pioneering science and technology demos. This wasn't just about a change of scenery. Until now, every Crew Dragon flight ended off the Florida coast, either in the Gulf or Atlantic. But SpaceX and NASA recently rewrote the script, deliberately shifting to Pacific waters for reasons that go far beyond tradition. As CBS News noted, all previous NASA Crew Dragon flights ended with splashdowns off the Florida Gulf Coast or the Atlantic Ocean. But SpaceX recently decided to change landing locales. Why? The choice of landing site is not just about geography. It determines how quickly rescue teams can reach the capsule, how safely the crew can be extracted, and even the crucial survival window if something goes wrong. A miscalculation here is not just inconvenient, it can be life-threatening. As AP News reported, the astronauts' capsule parachuted into the Pacific off the Southern California coast, a region chosen for its proximity to rescue assets and flexible weather patterns. There's more to the story. The journey from the ISS to the California coast aboard the gumdrop-shaped Dragon capsule took 17.5 hours, as detailed by India Today. That's a marathon descent, demanding precise coordination between ground teams, ships, aircraft, and the astronauts themselves, all to ensure that, in the event of unexpected hazards, every second counts. But why risk breaking with 50 years of tradition? In 2075, when a NASA crew last splashed down in the Pacific, spaceflight was still new and risky. Since then, water landings were refined for speed and safety near Florida's coasts. Yet today, the stakes are shifting. Splashdown zones are now carefully chosen to rehearse for the unknowns of deep space missions, where the nearest safe harbor could be an ocean away, and recovery scenarios must be stress-tested for when things don't go as planned. This means today's astronauts are not just coming home, they're beta testing the very protocols that might one day protect the first civilians or even future crews bound for Mars or lunar outposts. Understanding these behind-the-scenes decisions isn't just trivia, it's a window into how NASA and SpaceX weigh lives, technology, and the evolving frontiers of human exploration. So what led NASA and SpaceX to rewrite the rulebook? And why now, when safety is at an all-time premium? To answer that, let's pull back the curtain on the high-stakes calculations behind picking a landing zone and discover the hidden risks and rewards of this historic Pacific splashdown. Picture this. SpaceX is risking the unknown, abandoning nearly 5 decades of routine Atlantic landings for the wild, unpredictable Pacific. Most people never realize just how much is on the line. One miscalculation could threaten lives, damage trust, and stall humanity's push to explore beyond Earth. This is not just a logistical tweak. Every re-entry from orbit is a high-wire act, where the smallest error can mean disaster. Historically, NASA crews splashed down near Florida, where rapid rescue and gentle waters offered a safety net. However, with every mission, SpaceX is pushing into new territory, testing not only science, but the very procedures that stand between astronauts and catastrophe. By pivoting west, as revealed in AI News, SpaceX is betting big on safety. Their new landing zones are calculated to keep falling debris from Crew Dragon's discarded parts safely away from cities, shipping routes, and vital infrastructure. The Pacific, especially off Southern California, opens a vast buffer, hundreds of miles from crowded beaches, busy ports, or populations. This is about more than open ocean. It is about creating a giant safety margin for both crew and the public. As CBS News reports, SpaceX's fresh landing sites were picked with painstaking care to ensure that any fragments would hit only empty water, miles from people or property. But this bold move introduces its own dangers. Recovery teams must race across longer distances, battle tricky currents, and face weather that is anything but predictable. The Crew 10 mission itself was forced to wait as unruly seas delayed their homecoming, proof reported by India Today that these procedures are far from routine. Crew 10's undocking was postponed. Every hour a reminder that nature and logistics can still disrupt even the most advanced missions. Why risk it all now? Crew 10 is not just another crew swap. It is a calculated gamble, trading the comfort of tradition for the promise of greater safety and future readiness. In NASA's words, every new protocol and technology tested on this mission enable us to prepare for human exploration of the Moon and Mars. This Pacific splashdown is not a novelty. It is a rehearsal, a stress test, a signal that old methods are being challenged and improved for the next giant's leap. The safety of astronauts, the success of missions, and the credibility of the space program itself. A misstep could cost lives and erode support for future exploration. Yet, clinging to outdated routines could doom humanity's dreams of lunar bases or Martian colonies before they even begin. For Crew 10, every decision was loaded with consequence. For the public, understanding these choices could shift how we view spaceflight, shape funding, and determine how soon ordinary people might ride these spacecraft themselves. But how did SpaceX and NASA actually pull off this Pacific splashdown? Let's break down the day of maneuvers, technology, and tense moments that defined Crew 10's historic return. Could today's Pacific splashdowns be tomorrow's blueprint for lunar or Martian returns? Crew 10's landing in the wide blue Pacific is much more than a change of scenery. For the first time in nearly 50 years, a NASA crewed spacecraft returned to Earth off California's coast, not the familiar Atlantic or Gulf waters. This shift is not just historic, it's a calculated risk, a live rehearsal for the challenges astronauts will face coming home from the Moon, Mars, or even more distant worlds. Why move west? SpaceX and NASA are deliberately testing new safety protocols. The Pacific offers a vast, sparsely trafficked recovery zone, lowering risks from storms, shipping, and coastal hazards. If these new strategies work, they could become the standard for future deep space returns, where precision and safety are paramount. But if they fail, the consequences, lost crews, lost hardware, or worse, could be catastrophic. As NASA notes, the research conducted aboard the orbiting laboratory advances scientific knowledge and demonstrates new technologies that enable us to prepare for human exploration of the Moon and Mars. This mission is a proving ground for more than just splashdowns. The Crew 10 team, led by Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, alongside Japan's Takuya Onishi and Russia's Kirill Peskov, represents a new era of international partnership. 4 astronauts from 3 nationalities trained and operated as a single unit, mirroring the multinational crews that will one day push out to lunar orbit or the Martian surface. Their 5-month odyssey aboard the International Space Station included hundreds of hours of research on everything from plant growth and microgravity to the effects of cosmic radiation on DNA, work that directly supports future off-world survival. This blend of science, engineering, and diplomacy is quietly resetting expectations for who goes to space and how. The Pacific Splashdown signals that NASA and its partners are willing to take bold steps, not just to improve safety, but to break new ground for private missions too. Commercial companies are watching closely, eager to apply these lessons to their own ambitions, whether that means returning tourists from orbit or ferrying scientists beyond Earth's gravity. The stakes? Nothing less than the future of human spaceflight. If the Pacific proves a safer, more efficient return corridor, it opens the path to routine, global access to space. If not, every mistake becomes a lesson paid for in risk and reputation. Their mission isn't over yet, as new research delves into how microgravity, the journey of discovery, continues, each step forward making the next giant leap possible. But what vital lessons from Crew 10's journey can we carry forward? Lessons that might shape the missions set to leave footprints on entirely new worlds. Let's break down what Crew 10's Splashdown teaches us about risk, innovation, and the future of crewed space travel, because these choices could one day determine the fate of astronauts returning from Mars. This isn't just space trivia. Crew 10's mission hides valuable lessons for anyone facing high stakes. Let's break down what ordinary people, future engineers, and policymakers can actually learn from how Crew 10 tackled risk, innovation, and teamwork. First, every step of their journey was about managing risk, not avoiding it. The choice to splash down in the Pacific Ocean for the first time in almost 50 years wasn't just for headlines. It was a carefully weighed decision. By shifting the landing site west, NASA and SpaceX rehearsed the kinds of unpredictable, high-stakes scenarios future Mars or lunar missions will face. For anyone in a challenging field, the message is clear. Progress demands embracing new risks, but only after rigorous testing and collaboration. Crew 10's approach to innovation is just as important. The mission wasn't only about getting home safely. During their nearly half-year on board the International Space Station, McClain, Ayers, and Onishi conducted experiments on plant and microalgae growth, studied how space radiation changes DNA in plants, and explored how microgravity affects human eyes and cells. According to NASA, McClain, Ayers, and Onishi completed investigations on plant and microalgae growth, examined how space radiation affects DNA sequences in plants, observed how microgravity changes human eye structure and cells in the body, and more. These aren't just space curiosities. They are trial runs for technologies and knowledge we may one day rely on here on Earth or far from it. For engineers and innovators, the Crew 10 story proves that groundbreaking progress is built on deliberate, step-by-step testing, in space and in any frontier. Finally, Crew 10's international makeup, astronauts from the United States, Japan, and Russia, shows what's possible when different nations and perspectives work together. Their SpaceX capsule parachuted into the Pacific, closing out NASA's 10th commercial crew rotation and demonstrating that true progress is a team effort. As a Space Daily report put it, an international crew of 4 in a SpaceX capsule. Whether you're working across cultures or departments, Crew 10's success reminds us that collaboration multiplies the odds of safe returns and new discoveries. Ignore these lessons, and you risk repeating avoidable mistakes, whether you're launching rockets or launching new ideas. Crew 10's mission isn't just history. It's a blueprint for anyone taking on big goals where lives, safety, or major investments are on the line. But there's another side to risk and innovation. How these choices shape our trust in space programs and the future of exploration. Let's dig into why Crew 10's story matters for all of us, not just the experts. Every splashdown could change the future of space travel, or risk it all. The next time you watch a spacecraft hit the waves, know that life and death stakes and game-changing innovations are still in motion. NASA and SpaceX's Crew 10 mission was not just a shift in scenery. For the first time in nearly 50 years, a NASA crewed capsule splashed down in the vast Pacific Ocean off California's coast rather than the usual Atlantic or Gulf. This was a daring, calculated gamble behind the scenes, not just a dramatic headline. Why choose a new landing zone? The Pacific means fewer boats, less commercial chaos, and more margin for error, crucial if something goes wrong during re-entry. But it also brings longer waits, tougher recovery, and real logistical nightmares. NASA and SpaceX balanced all these factors, wagering that Pacific landings could unlock safer, more adaptable missions as we set our sights on the Moon and Mars. The consequences are massive. Each splashdown is more than a homecoming. Astronauts like Anne McClain, Nicole Ayers, Takuya Onishi, and Kirill Peskov spent almost 5 months on the International Space Station, conducting experiments that could shape the next era of exploration. Their return, where, when, and how, tests systems and protocols that might one day decide the survival of future explorers or even civilian passengers. Space progress often hides in the details, not the headlines. The biggest leaps sometimes come from choices that seem routine: a new splash zone, a riskier bet, a handshake between the United States, Japan, and Russia. Who wins or loses? Ultimately, all of us, if these choices lead to safer, more reliable, and bolder missions. Our future in space rests on decisions like these: incremental, risky, and mostly unseen. So the next time you hear about a safe return, ask yourself, are we just applauding the homecoming, or are we recognizing the bold moves that make the next frontier possible? Stay tuned, because the next splashdown might hold even bigger surprises, and what we learn could decide the fate of tomorrow's explorers, or even you.